Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's meeting. Before we get started, I'm going to just quickly go over a few Zoom tips for us here tonight. Just to get started, we do have closed captions available for this evening's meeting. I'm just going to enable them, and then you'll be able to find them by clicking the live transcript button at the bottom of your screen. Next is that we will be recording this meeting so that we can share it on the YouTube channel and you can watch it afterwards. We strongly encourage you to use the chat box for tonight's meeting. You have been muted so that we can hear the speakers, but we would love for you to share all of your questions and comments in the chat box so we can answer your questions. And I'll ask that you get started by introducing yourself in the chat box. Tell us your name, where you're from, and why you're joining us here tonight. If you need any support throughout tonight's meeting, or if you're joining us on the phone and you have questions, you can email your questions to myself at megan@wellingtonwaterwatchers.ca. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Melissa. Have a great meeting, everyone.
My name's Sharon Collingwood, and I work with Get Concerned Stratford. And there's a little song that I really like that encapsulates what we've been doing for the past 2 months. And I thought we could have a little video to kind of cheer up our spirits. And the song is written by Peggy Seeger. And Peggy Seeger is the younger sister of Pete Seeger. And those of you who are, I guess, over 30 might know who that is. Anyway, Peggy's 85 now, and she's still singing protest songs. And right now she's working on a campaign to save the last 4 acres of meadow in Iffley Village, Oxford. So anyway, we wrote her and said, can we use your song, Peggy? And she wrote back and said, not only can you use my song, I endorse what you're doing. You can use my name. She's just wonderful. So we made a little video from her song, and we sent it back to her for approval. And she wrote back that it was so good. So I think you'll like it. And at the end of the video, there's a link to what they're doing in Iffley Village, all the way across the pond. They're there working to save badgers and foxes and whatever lives in the meadow. And they're doing what we're doing. And it sort of makes me think of what Lesley Walker-Fitzpatrick said last time. She says, we're fighting for the environment here. It's not just our town. We're fighting for it. River by river, aquifer by aquifer, community by community. We're working to protect the environment locally, to protect it globally. So we're all in this together. And I'm kind of hoping that after you see this video, maybe you'll use the link, copy the link down at the end, and you'll send your encouragement over to the people of Iffley because they're having a hard time right now. And that's my introduction to this video.
The human brain can't stand still, even when it gets to the top of the hill. Just can't stop and admire the view. Always got to have something new. The human brain's an intelligent fool. Build you a hospital, build you a school. You wake up the very next day. The progress train took it all away. The progress train can demolish your town, selling us heaven when we're hellbound. When we're hellbound, fed by apathy, driven by greed, always running at top speed, going so fast. You won't notice it till it's past. Doesn't give a damn about yesterday when you forget what it took away. You'll know the progress train roll right over you. Juggernaut hurtling down the road. You're not in control, you're part of the load. Running the lights, won't slow down. Get in its way and it'll run you down. The progress train is on a one-way track. Take you there, won't bring you back. And when you start singing, I'm alright, Jack. I'm alright, Jack. I'm alright, Jack. You'll know the progress train ran right into you. that shoes had to dance. The progress train has to advance, tables to turn, money to earn, bridges to burn. We never learn, got no destination, it'll go anywhere. Doesn't even know when it's got there. Got no beginning, got no end. Doesn't even care what's around the bend. Got to grow, got to change, build up, tear down, rearrange. Got to move on, dirty or clean. It's an atom bomb, it's a washing machine, it's a love song. It sings, seducing you with things that ease your heart and please your mind. The passengers sleep and the driver's blind. A fire in his pants, he don't dance, no romance. They want you now, they want you now, they want you now, and they'll have you now. That's the progress train, and it's right over you.
Hi, everybody. First, I just love that video. I've seen it before and it made my eyes well up this time. I'm just so proud of this community. It's amazing what we've accomplished in the last 2 months. And it takes my breath away what everybody's been doing. So the reason we're here tonight, we're going to update you guys on communications we've had with the City of Stratford. As far as what we know about the pause on the decision regarding the Xinyi proposal. We're going to discuss together what we think this decision means and gather ideas on what the public consultation process needs to include moving forward. We're going to hear from some allies on the next steps in their action plans. We're going to introduce you to the steering committee formally, although you've seen most of us around. And we're going to go through the finances so far. We're going to have a bit of a donation portion. And then I'm just going to touch on quick where we are now. The pause is obviously a welcome moment. I think we all needed just a second to take a deep breath. There's been a need for full public review of all the issues around the Xinyi application. There are also still many questions that need to be answered. Just one single one being the greenhouse gas emissions that have not yet been declared by Xinyi or provided to the city or the citizens. We will talk about, the city has promised to involve Get Concerned Stratford on the design of the public consultation process before it does proceed. And at this point, we have no idea when that may or may not proceed. It could be months before we reach a decision. Right at the moment, the city is saying that the pause is due to the COVID-19 situation. However, the press release by Xinyi and Chris Pigeon is worded quite differently than the way the city's was, proclaiming their disappointment in the pause, and it doesn't seem to be in line with the city's comments. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. The community, the last 2 months, has become very informed about the risks associated with this proposal, and the majority oppose it. Maybe the mayor and council have come to terms with this reality and realize they have to go back to the drawing board and start over in making the decision. Maybe those who support the project are making a strategic retreat to take time to make a new plan to get this approved. Maybe the pause is part of a strategy, a strategic gradual withdrawal from the project to let it die a quiet death. We can't know which is the case, and it's not worth speculating. We need to prepare for every scenario at this point. Some things that we do feel good about. Together, we've stopped council from ramming this decision through in November. We have together caused council to postpone their plan to make a decision before Christmas. Together, we've educated many councillors on the potential environmental and political impacts of the Xinyi proposal. All of you stepped up and took signs, attended rallies, donated, called your councillors. You encouraged the steering committee every step of the way. We feel like you have our back. And so for that, our most heartfelt thank you. But it's not over. The community is overwhelmingly opposed to the Xinyi proposal. We can catch our breath, but we must take this time to continue to plan how to move forward. Let's begin the conversation now on the next phase of the campaign to say no to Xinyi. On that note, I'm going to hand it over to Mike Bockwell of the Wellington Water Watchers. Get Concerned Stratford has again asked him to facilitate this meeting, and we're going to get it started.
Thank you, Melissa, and welcome everybody. In a moment, I'm going to introduce Mike Sullivan, who's going to catch us up, update us on some communications with the City of Stratford and some other communication and things that are going on. And I noticed, Mike, that in the question box, chat box, Bob Phillips is saying, any comments about the news that the PC affiliated lobbyist Braden Akers has been retained by Xinyi? So I'm hoping that you'll include that in your comments, Mike. So Mike, when you're ready, turn your video on and your microphone, and please speak to us. And maybe Danny, you can take the agenda down for now so people can see each other. And if you have questions while Mike is speaking, put them in the chat box, and then we'll address them to Mike after his presentation. Are you ready, Mike?
I am.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike. So what I've decided to talk about tonight is what we're doing in terms of the secrecy that took place since the City of Stratford wasn't told that this was going on sometime between the summer of 2018 and the fall of 2020. That's almost 2.5 years that there was lots going on, but the city didn't know about it. The people of the city didn't know about it. So meetings occurred between the mayor and Xinyi representatives and other people concerning locating a factory in Stratford sometime in 2018. Xinyi had already been turned down in Guelph Aramosa over potential water use, but the process in Guelph Aramosa was entirely public. It wasn't done in secrecy as it has been so far in Stratford. So on November 20th, 2018, next slide, please. The mayor wrote to Minister Steve Clark asking for a ministerial zoning order. Now, the fact that he did this was not known to anybody in Stratford until the press discovered it in November of 2020. And suddenly there was an army of finger pointing back and forth over whose fault this was, that a ministerial zoning order had been asked for or had been granted. The minister saying, well, you asked for it. The city saying, or the mayor saying, well, this isn't exactly what we asked for. But it's very clear from November 20th of 2018 that the mayor had been working for a number of months to find a suitable site, etc. This is before November 20th, 2018. So sometime in the summer of 2018, we believe, there had been a number of meetings already with Xinyi. And as he indicates in this letter to Minister Steve Clark, they had executed a letter of intent with Xinyi. So they've also made plans with Xinyi for future growth on site in a subsequent phase. So the city and the mayor know about phase 2. They haven't told us anything about phase 2, but they do know about it. So the mayor asked for a ministerial zoning order. We learned from the Beacon Herald that this had been done. So I searched through all the minutes of all Stratford, Perth South, and Perth County councils. And there was no reference whatsoever in any of the time between the summer of 2018 and today of a ministerial zoning order in any of the public documents on any of those at any of those councils. So I phoned the clerks of all the councils, said, when did this happen? When did council approve the request for a ministerial zoning order, because the mayor wrote on behalf of the City of Stratford and the other two councils, not just as the mayor. Stratford clerk advised me that the city's CAO, Joan Thompson, would be the best one to answer my question, but despite many phone calls to her and emails, she has not yet even responded to my question. The other clerks in the other municipalities indicated that they would go and look, but they've never got back to me either. So the process to complain about this is to file a complaint with the city, that the city then hires a independent, in quotes, closed meeting investigator, whose name is John Pappas, from the firm of Aird Bearless in Toronto. And that person is supposed to investigate our complaint. The complaint was that I could not find any record of the council having voted on an MZO. So how were we to know when this happened and exactly whether it happened, in fact? But because the City of Stratford has a unfortunate habit of never saying, when there's a closed meeting, why there is a closed meeting. All they do is quote from the act the phrases that say you can have a closed meeting if it's about labor relations, or you can have a closed meeting if you are going to identify an individual who doesn't want to be identified. And that's all they do. They don't say what the closed meeting is about. They are, according to their own rules of procedure, supposed to say generally what the meeting is about, but they don't ever do that. So I had to ask the closed meeting investigator to please investigate all the meetings from the summer of 2018 till the fall of 2020. He refused to do that, said it was too big. So he and I agreed to just look at the closed meetings prior to the mayor writing the letter, which he is now doing. And he is now investigating, and he'll get back to me at some point. Next slide, please. In addition, I realized that there was a letter of agreement entered into between the province and Xinyi Glass, November 22nd, 2017. And that letter of agreement is currently not public. So I phoned the Ministry of Economic Development, asked them, could I please see a copy? They said, well, you'll have to ask for a Freedom of Information request. We can't just give it to you. You have to go through that process, knowing that that process has a 60-day limit on it. It's going to take 60 days for me to get an answer. And I'm still awaiting a response, although they have said they've located it. And they are now checking with Xinyi to see whether Xinyi objects to my seeing it. I don't know if that's something that Xinyi should have the power to say, but that's apparently what's going to happen. The reason I know it's November 22nd is because that date and a picture of the premier, at the time Kathleen Wynne, is on the Xinyi website. Next slide, please. So we're awaiting a response from that closed meeting investigator. Sorry, and so the next slide, please. Now, I then realized that on December the 10th, the city, in addition to the mayor's letter saying that they'd signed an agreement, the city admitted publicly, this is the first time it had publicly admitted, that they'd already signed an agreement in November of 2018 with Xinyi. And that agreement was labeled on the city's website as a non-binding letter of agreement. Well, now it's public. So I then phoned the clerk and said, can I please see a copy of the minutes of the meeting? Or can you tell me the date of the meeting when council agreed to an agreement with Xinyi, that this isn't just the mayor, that it's council? And I got a reply from her a couple of days later saying, you have to ask for that information through a Freedom of Information request. I'm not allowed to just give it to you. So I did. I wrote a letter to the city on their form saying, and gave them the $5, because you got to pay $5 to get a Freedom of Information request started. And I asked to provide the date of the meeting and the minutes of the meeting showing who voted for and against the motion to enter into this letter of intent. And their response, as you can see in the bottom paragraph there, is that the city has completed a search for responsive records related to your request and can advise that no responsive records were located specifically dealing with a motion by council considering and voting on a non-binding letter of intent. Now, that on its face is pretty shocking, except that it may be, and they haven't told me this, that those records exist in the closed meetings and that the closed meetings are not subject to freedom of information requests. I don't know the answer. We got lawyers working at this, so we'll put it over to the lawyers. So our lawyer has met with their lawyer, and their lawyer has indicated, look, if you give us a freedom of information request, we'll give you everything we can. And so we have given them a freedom of information request that asks for every document, every note, every napkin, every piece of paper, every video recording, every audio recording, every child's crayon scrawl on a kitchen sink related to Xinyi, so that we can know exactly what went on and why it was behind closed doors. The other, going back just a second, the other indication about the ministerial zoning order is that the minister has stated that he only grants ministerial zoning orders when they are requested by the council of the town requesting it. And he also stated that it should be in a public open meeting. I have checked other councils that have requested ministerial zoning orders, and they have done it in an open format. Stratford is the only one I've been able to find where the request for a ministerial zoning order was done in a closed meeting, if it was done at all. We still don't know for sure until we hear back from the closed meeting investigator. So we now, the other thing that I've asked the closed meeting investigator to tell me is whether or not it is fitting under the exceptions in the Act for council to hide from the public in a closed meeting a decision on a ministerial zoning order. As I read the exceptions in the Act, this doesn't fit any of those exceptions. Like, it's not collective bargaining with the union. It's not identification of a person who doesn't want to be identified. It's not a matter that is subject to, there's a long list of things, and the ministerial zoning order does not fit in any of that list. And I believe that council acted improperly by hiding this from us. We'll find out when he reports. We are also aware that the mayor has preemptively asked the Stratford City Council's integrity commissioner to examine his actions and determine whether they were in keeping with Stratford's code of conduct. Now, it would appear that the mayor is maybe concerned about whether or not this stuff was done legally and is all above board, which is why he's preemptively asked the integrity commissioner to rule for him. We're not aware that the mayor has publicly revealed the integrity commissioner's report, though we're aware there is one. So what does it say? We don't know. One other thing that Mike Bockwell asked me to advise you is that Xinyi has now hired a lobbyist, a Braden Akers, whose most recent gig was acting as a lobbyist for Rivera care homes, one of the ones that are under serious concern about COVID spread in their homes, and the fact that they are giving large sums of money to their shareholders while their staff are getting paid peanuts. I don't know how well he did with Rivera, but now he's been hired by Xinyi to act as a lobbyist to the provincial government on their behalf. You may recall we told you several weeks ago that the NDP, the official opposition at Queen's Park, has formally launched a complaint with the provincial integrity commissioner over the fact that the minister and the premier have admitted that they were lobbied by Xinyi and perhaps by GSP, Mr. Pigeon, and that lobbying was done without registering the lobbyist with the Lobbyist Registry of Ontario. In other words, it was done behind closed doors in secret, and should not have happened without there being a public notice that this was going on. Finally, I want to tell you about our local MP. Megan Melissa and I went to visit with him a couple of weeks ago by Zoom. And we asked him a number of questions about federal matters, some of which have been raised already by Loreena McKennitt, and some of which we have raised with his office. He has, on our behalf, written to the new Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry. You may remember that Prime Minister Trudeau has shuffled his cabinet slightly, and François-Philippe Champagne is now the minister. And he has asked the same questions that we asked, whether or not a review of Xinyi under Section 25.21 of the Investment Canada Act has been initiated. You may recall that Loreena McKennitt asked a lawyer to write a letter to the previous minister on that behalf, and we are heartened to see that our MP has pushed the matter as well. He's also raised the issues that transpired that require this Section 25 review of the Xinyi deal. In addition, on our behalf, he has written to Invest Canada. So Invest Canada is a organization, arm's length agency of the government that helps foreign companies organize themselves in Canada. And we're aware that Xinyi has had conversations with Invest Canada and has probably received advice with Invest Canada. And he asks a number of questions. Has Xinyi requested an exemption from paying the carbon tax? And if so, what has Invest in Canada told them? What information have they shared about their energy needs of their proposed facility? How many local jobs have they promised? And what are the timelines for hiring and training these employees? We still don't know. Have they provided advice or received any information from Xinyi regarding the temporary foreign workers program or any other type of economic immigration? Has the government of Canada consulted with Indigenous communities in southwestern Ontario? How many years has Xinyi committed to operating the facility? What commitments has Xinyi made to complete the project if approved? What stipulations or legal requirements have been put in place to ensure Xinyi meets their commitments? And in order to protect us from a future problem, does Xinyi have any security, guarantee, surety bond, debenture, warranty, or other form of legal guarantee that has been established or committed to? This is because we're aware that the directors of the corporation are all hidden from view in the Cayman Islands and the British Virgin Islands. So it'll be very difficult for the City of Stratford, the Government of Canada, the Province of Ontario to come after them should something bad happen as a result of an environmental disaster or anything else that goes on with this plant. So have they put up money to assure us that they will in fact decommission the plant when it needs to be decommissioned? What information has been shared about labor and environmental obligations? Have they applied for any federal grants? We know that they got a $4 million grant from the federal government to put in a heat exchanging system to create electricity, which they're already doing in China, but now the government of Canada is paying them to do it here. Has the government investigated Xinyi's corporate structure, including their incorporation in the Cayman Islands? And has the government examined their proposal as it relates to Canada-China relations, the corporate influence of the government of China, and links between Xinyi management and the Communist Party of China? All of those things are now on the public record from our MP, and we thank him very much for that. That's all I have, if
thank you, Mike.
David is here. He's not here yet. Okay.
No, hang on. Sorry, I'm getting my microphone on. Thank you, Mike. David is here. We're going to go to him in a minute. There's several comments in the chat box that you might want to look at when David speaks. One question that maybe you can answer is that the lobbyist, Braden Akers, do you know if he's been hired as an individual or has he been hired as part of the firm Navigator?
I have no idea.
Don't know that. Okay. You'll see comments in the chat box. Mike, appreciating you for your work. And you are a bulldog and you're a very thorough bulldog. And we appreciate we should think of exactly what kind of animal you are, but you're a bulldog in your tenacity, but you're unearthing things. I don't know if bulldogs unearth things, but you're unearthing a lot.
Anteaters do.
Pardon me?
Anteaters do.
Anteaters do. Okay, so we're going to work on some kind of bulldog or bulldog anteater combo meme for you. As Mike was talking, he said, and our lawyer's following up on that, and our lawyer is David Donnelly. So I'm going to call David to the screen to add some comments in terms of his communication with the city solicitor. David, are you there?
Yes, I am. Good evening. And I want to say a special thank you for starting with Peggy Seeger and that wonderful song. I can remember when I was about 4 or 5 years old, waiting for my father to come home for work. He was a school principal, and we would play Pete Seeger live at Carnegie Hall. And for the first 15 years of my life, I thought I was going to be a human rights, civil rights lawyer. And that, of course, problem got sort of solved. And so I became an environmental lawyer instead. But that is, I think, the power and the inspiration of music. And I was very much inspired by Peggy Seeger tonight. That was a real treat for me. So thank you. My report is somewhat short, and it relates specifically to a call that I had with Paula Lombardi, who is the solicitor that has been retained by the city to give them advice with regards to Xinyi. Although she didn't say so, I believe that she has been advising them throughout this process dating back to at least 2018. I've had a good relationship with Paula stretching back many years, including right back to the time when she was the mentee of one of my mentors, Dr. Ron Puszczak, who's a professor of urban and regional planning at Ryerson, but also even further back to the time when Paula Lombardi worked for Greenpeace. So all that to say, she is in my opinion, a very level-headed, public-spirited solicitor. And so I think that has comforted me somewhat in terms of what I'm about to tell you, which I think it's quite sincere on her part. The message that she sent was that the process leading to a council vote was going to be put on hiatus. And I think that's significant because hiatus to me suggests that sometimes you can have a short hiatus. A hiatus can be a period of years, and a hiatus, of course, can be permanent. So that I thought was a bit striking. She suggested that there would be a period of 4 to 6 weeks during which there would be this hiatus. And then, and I noted her words down very carefully, she said that if council intends to proceed, then Get Stratford would be consulted with respect to the consultation plan. So she did use the word if, and I think she was the one who had provided council with advice and then was relaying council's advice. I think it was very careful and very scripted. So I do think that council is now deciding whether they want to proceed or not. Now, that raised a couple of important issues for me. And the most important one was what would a consultation plan involve? The commitment to Get is too vague for me at the present moment. And I think that there should be a letter following up on the promise that would outline sort of the terms in terms of the consultation. And I think the first or most important principle is that in the development of any consultation plan, Get Stratford and other residents, including Loreena's group, be on equal footing or be treated as an equal partner with Xinyi. And I say that's an important principle because in the course of our conversation, Ms. Lombardi advised me that in fact, part of what had inspired council to ask for this hiatus was a request that had come from Xinyi for a public meeting where they could respond to all the questions and comments that they had received, and that it be done in a public forum, and that it be done as a full meeting of council. Now, what caught my attention was attendant with that request from Xinyi was that the public, in particular Get Stratford, not be permitted to make any submissions or ask any questions. And that the basis for that request was because Xinyi had been subjected, in Ms. Lombardi's words, to previous inappropriate comments that had taken a tone of racism. So I was not present at the meeting. I don't know whether that's true or untrue, but I just thought that it was extraordinary that this company felt that it could make this request, that it could ask for a public meeting of council, and that it could then dictate the terms to the city, and that the city simply wouldn't have said no. She was asking me, what Get Stratford's position would be with respect to that kind of arrangement. So it's still very much the case that Xinyi is in the driver's seat with respect to structuring the consultation and how we go forward. And I think that that's a very important principle that should be established before we commit to any sort of consultation plan. The other ingredients in the plan or principles that should guide our submissions with respect to the plan is that the timeline should be made explicit. It shouldn't be a continuing rambling sort of timeline with a threat to hold a vote on 7 days notice. There should be a structured timeline that is generous, not in terms of days and weeks, but in fact months. There should be funding that is provided to residents for things like peer review. This is the case in most federal projects. And in fact, in the case that I'm involved in now, in a deep nuclear waste burial facility proposed for South Bruce Township, the township is being funded to, in fact, hire experts to do peer reviews. That should be the case here. Another condition or principle should be that there should be a formalized mechanism for establishing whether, in fact, Stratford is a quote unquote willing host community. In the case of South Bruce, that will take the form of a referendum. And I would think that a minimum principle that should be asked for or obtained in any consultation plan, should it proceed, would be that there be an explicit mechanism for demonstrating whether you are in fact a willing host community, which would be probably most simply in the form of a referendum. The consultation plan should contain principles around the consultation with First Nations. That has not been spelled out very carefully. I have not seen a proper engagement schedule and funding for First Nations, which is a broader community than just the Mohawk of the Grand. Last but not least, in the consultation plan, if the city is sincere, then it should hire an outside paid facilitator, someone who is a professional in dealing with community consultation. It may sound like an easy thing to do, but in fact, it takes real skill and experience. There are a number of very good professionals out there. They're kind of referees. They can make decisions about what are fair timelines, fair information exchange. They're expert at structuring meetings so that there is broad participation. That to me would be a bottom line principle. I'm happy to commit this to a memo to the directors of Get Stratford, but I think we should be early and strong with respect to what we consider to be bedrock principles of any formal consultation plan in dealing with a 1 million square foot, $400 million facility. A few bucks should be put towards having a proper consultation if that's what they're committed to. Last but not least, with respect to the consultation, it was my primary submission that the city should immediately establish a citizens advisory committee, which is done elsewhere on any number of different things, including environment, cultural heritage, and that Stratford embrace this approach. Xinyi, of course, could be an equal partner on the advisory committee. They should be at every meeting. They should be at the table, but so too should the residents of Stratford, and that any decisions about consultation, planning, funding, timelines, referenda, what have you, all be done in a crystal clear, open format. Council should stop meeting in camera. They should stop having secret meetings about process and about consultation. This should all be done above board, and the only way to accomplish that is to have a full, properly structured citizens advisory committee that meets regularly to discuss the issues so that there can be a free exchange of information. Commensurate with that, a citizens advisory committee, I asked that the city stop using its website as a mouthpiece for Xinyi. Having read it numerous times, there are a number of occasions in which the city has granted Xinyi full license to broadcast whatever propaganda it wishes with respect to its own facility. I'll use but one example. That's the case of the greenhouse gas emissions. The question is posed by the city on the website, what are your greenhouse gas emissions? It then says that Xinyi's response is the following, that they are going to use offsets as a way to make it one of the most responsible climate facilities of its kind with respect to flow class. With all due respect, that is utter nonsense. No country would accept that sort of answer. And with the citizens, with the city's logo, with its coat of arms on the website, it looks like the city has cast a critical eye over that response and that it has endorsed that response as a reasonable, responsible response to the question that the city in fact endorses. So there are other examples, of course, with respect to why did they seek an MZO and other examples. Ms. Lombardi promised that she would take that back to council and that they would reconsider the configuration of the website as it currently exists. The final reform that she has promised to take back to council is that Stratford, for its size and sophistication, is an outlier with respect to municipalities, particularly the planning department, in how it treats information. In most small to medium, and of course, including large municipalities in the province of Ontario, because all the material that they receive with respect to Planning Act applications or any development application, because all that material is now submitted both in hard copy and in electronic copy, it is automatic that municipalities post that material to their websites so that it can be freely accessed by people, COVID or no COVID. Who wants to go to City Hall and photocopy large documents and take home paper copies in what should be a paperless society? Ms. Lombardi promised that she would take that recommendation back, that going forward, Stratford would publish all development application materials on its website for ease of reference. That ends my presentation with respect to the consultation plan, the Citizens Advisory Committee. There's one other matter that I've been asked to comment on tonight, and that's with respect to the Minister's zoning order and our Freedom of Information request. At Ms. Lombardi's suggestion, I sought and obtained instructions to file a further FOI request with respect to the in-camera meetings that have been conducted regarding the request for the minister's zoning order, and also with respect to the signing of 2 letters of intent, one binding, which occurred sometime in November of 2018, and a further binding letter of intent that was signed sometime subsequently, we don't know when. It was Ms. Lombardi's request that we submit that FOI that came with the intimation that even though some of the material may be privileged by the in-camera designation, that council may be advised to release it anyway as part of the FOI process in terms of providing full transparency. And in fact, she said that when you look at the material, most of it is reasonably standard. And so they may waive this confidentiality and disclose it simply because they think that it will then release one of our good publicity points, which is that, you know, this is a secret deal and this shouldn't go ahead because it's secret. So I'm actually hopeful that some information will be disclosed as a result of this FOI request. And so, Mike, to answer your question, yes, we have tried to cover the entire field with respect to any agendas, meetings of minutes, telephone call, notes, et cetera, et cetera. We'll see what we get back, but I think we've been very thorough on your behalf. And again, I am somewhat confident, or at least hopeful, that we'll be able to take some of the secrecy out of the process by getting this disclosure. So last but not least, as some of you may know, our firm has been legal counsel to over 300 citizens groups in the province of Ontario over the course of the last 10 years. This is the first time in my experience, having dealt with MZOs for the past 30 years, this is the first time that I have ever seen a community actually pause or stop an MZO dead in its tracks. An MZO is usually a death certificate in terms of planning. It means that the developer and the city will get its way. And while this isn't over by any stretch, I've never seen anything like this accomplished in the past. And you should give yourselves a round of congratulations, because you have literally stopped a train on its tracks. That's unbelievable to me. It's an inspiration. And you are the reason why I do what I do. So with that, those are my submissions. Thank you.
Thank you, David. David, there are many reactions in the chat box to your suggestions about what should be in participation, and the public participation, and I'm going to come back to that in a moment. But there's one question that I want to ask you, David, from Dan Graver. Is it normal for a municipality to schedule in-camera meetings in advance for the year, 2 per month? So Stratford has scheduled 2 in-camera meetings a month for the coming year. Dan says these are supposed to be the exception, not the norm. Is that correct?
Yes and no. So municipalities the size of Stratford will occasionally have personnel matters to deal with. There'll be contractual matters to deal with. Sometimes they will buy or sell a property. Very, very rarely they will have proprietary information around some sort of contract tendering. So it is not a surprise to me that they schedule in-camera sessions regularly if they have an agenda. In other words, they know what's coming down. If they're going to deal with personnel matters, or they know that they'll be dealing with the disposition of property, that would be appropriate. You know, whether that's the case or not, it certainly, I'm suspicious that they do it on a regular basis just so they can get away with, you know, whatever's they're dealing with. They can pop into in-camera sessions so they don't have to deal with it in public. To that point, I was struck by something that Ms. Lombardi said that actually did raise a red flag for me. And that was the fact that when I said that in my long experience with MZOs, I was not familiar with an instance where a municipality had gone in camera, passed a resolution requesting an MZO to the province, and then not come out into public and at least debated it and asked for public comment and submissions and so on and so forth. She stopped me short and she advised me that in fact, in the case of the Toyota plant location in Cambridge, Ontario, in fact, Cambridge Council followed a process that was totally in secret and was done in camera. And she sort of said it almost approvingly, like, well, you know, they did it in Cambridge, so, you know, we did it here in Stratford. To me, when you use examples of bad behavior to excuse bad behavior, that is sort of what I'll call the lowest form of democracy, when to meet the bare minimum of requirements to include the public, you point to some other bad actor somewhere who did it, and that's why you think you can get away with it. I found that to be very troubling.
David, I hope you take the time to read the chat box. There's lots of appreciation there for you, and there's appreciation for both you and Mike as a tag team on this. What I'd like to do now is 2 things. The first one is David has made a number of suggestions of what a public consultation process should include. And as he was making those, there were a number of yes, 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 yes comments in the chat box. So what I'd like to ask you to do in the next couple of moments is add into the chat box either things that David proposed that you agree with, or things you would like to see be included in the public consultation process. And the steering committee will meet and review David's suggestions. It will consider his invitation to give him instructions to write that letter, and we will look at the additional suggestions you make. We'll feed that back to you in an email so you can see it, and we'll build towards that, because while we're in a short 4 to 6 perhaps week pause before the public consultation process design starts, we do want to get in front of that. If I connect back to what Melissa said at the beginning of the meeting, we're very pleased that we've got a moment where we can take our breath, but we cannot stop, and we in fact need to prepare for the next stage of this campaign. So I'm asking you to put that into those comments in the chat box. I see somebody saying that I think an outside facilitator is a requirement. All the proposals were significant. There is a question from Doris, and I'm not sure who's going to answer this. It might be Mike, but what email address should I send my response letters from councillors and Nader to? Oh, I see. You want to share with this committee. So I think maybe Danny, you can put the Get Concerned email in the chat box again. And people, if you've been writing to politicians or talking to politicians and you have information you want to share with us, that's the place to send it. Lots of people have been doing that. It's been giving us good information, good intelligence, good leads. So please keep that up. I'd like to, I'd like to just invite one more conversation in the chat box. And that is, you've heard from Melissa, who was presenting the some of the steering committee's view of what this moment's at. You've heard Mike provide information into what we're digging into. You've heard David's conversation with the lawyer, as well as his comment about you as a community being the first to stop the train. We haven't maybe got it completely off tracks yet, but we've stopped the MZO train. I'm just going to sneak in a side comment here for a minute. If the purpose of the MZO was to deflect and not allow public consultation, and the city is now, as it sounds, promising a full public consultation process, we've effectively stopped the MZO. And it's a reminder to us all that the steering committee has asked on your behalf, and David has asked the city to revoke the MZO because it serves no purpose now. And it would be an important thing to remove that constraint. So while we're doing that, I'd like to ask you to share in the chat box, what does this moment feel like for you? Again, you know, I think it was November 11th was the first time that Melissa and Sharon Collingwood called me up at the Water Watchers about this. And I think it was that Sunday that Xinyi had a public meeting, that Monday that Stratford had a council public meeting, and that Tuesday that they intended to vote on the cost sharing agreement and on the site plan. And that was postponed, and they said they were going to vote by the end of Christmas, by the end of December, pardon me, before Christmas. And that was postponed, and it's been postponed because of all the work everybody here has done. So that's an accomplishment. And we want to hear what parts of this feel like an accomplishment to you, and what are the things we need to continue to be vigilant for. So I invite you to put that in the chat box. And as you do that, I'm going to call on 3 people who are allies working on this to say no to Xinyi, to give us updates on what they're doing. And the first person is Loreena McKennitt from Wise Communities. So Loreena, I'm inviting you onto the screen to turn on your microphone and turn on your video.
Hello?
There you are.
Good.
Take it away.
All right. Well, that was amazing to hear all of that work that you've done, Mike and David. It's very, very reassuring, and certainly echoes a lot of what we've been studying as well. I think one of the things that I might draw to people's attention is that we released to the public and also to councillors a week ago Friday a timeline, a version of the timeline that we've put together. You can find that on the Wise Communities website. It's not very prominently displayed, but if you look at the top, you'll see timeline. And taking a lot of what Mike was explaining to us this evening, I think you'll see some of the narrative. I might also take a moment to speak to another part of that timeline that I particularly find disturbing. I mean, there's a lot of it, because when one adds up to the sentiment that there is no minutes of any public meeting for even 2.5 years now that say the word Xinyi glass factory, and that those minutes would be available to the public, that's quite a deep invisibility and deeply disturbing. And then you add in the length of time. But when one examines the annexation phase, when you go to the timeline, do start particularly at December 19th, and a letter was sent off to alert the neighbours of that land that there was going to be a public meeting on the 16th of January. But they don't put up the report until the day before. And so the community only had 24 hours barely to take on board, and they had set a timeline for feedback that simply was not realistic. And if you study how that whole period of time flows until, I believe, the 4th or 6th of February, after which the city and the county councils vote in favor for this annexation, you see how compromised that
period of time was in terms of, let's say, public consultation. I think what's also even more disturbing than that is to see in that timeline how much work was being done from September 2018 to a year ago of January 2020. And you realize that there were actually, in fact, a lot of people who did know really what was going on, and yet how the authorities, you might say, were not transparent with the community. I think, to be kind, it would be to say that the community was misled, and perhaps deliberately so. The fatal part of that is that it did punt it over down the line into the province's hands, and that's and the MZO. So the stage was set, the table was set for this to actually become more complex. So I just would draw people's attention to that. In terms of another avenue that we've been focusing on is actually researching how the path forward might be improved. And I did mention this, I think, a week or so ago. And certainly we've had a number of conversations and have connected some really, really excellent people who I hope will deliver to this community a far, far improved process than what we've all experienced this past 2.5 years. And I was delighted to hear the recommendations of David's in terms of the consultation plan. And that certainly has been part of the discussion that we've had with respect to how to improve things, but it certainly hasn't been the only thing. So just to give you a taste of what we're looking at, is it begins actually with what I call the intake valve. In this case, it would be like, what's going on at Invest Stratford? Who is there? What are the specifications of the industries or businesses that this community is looking to attract, rather than being open to anybody who might knock on our door? We're looking at things like orientation for citizens, because I'm sure I'm not alone in that civics was not my strongest suit. And to be honest, it wasn't even taught in the school that I went to in Manitoba. So I think that there's a lot of due diligence for the citizens to do, to get up to speed, to be better equipped to understand and participate in civic matters. We're also focusing on the orientation step of councillors, because we know that for example, whenever you have a new set of councillors come in, there's a lot to learn, there's a lot to know, and we feel that they need a lot of support, even if they've been in for a long while. I mean, for example, if we see that MZOs were not commonly used, so one of the questions one would have in this instance, how well were the councillors instructed in terms of what an MZO was, what its implications were, and how to consider it in a session where they were going to be expected to vote on it. We also want to have a much closer examination of the use, misuse, or abuse of in-camera meetings, because as we witnessed, it just simply is not democratic or fair to a community to be withheld from observing their democracy in action in the sort of blanket use of in-camera meetings. We also flagged the whole area of communications, how citizens are informed. And as was pointed out, the website is simply not a helpful tool, particularly at this stage of a game where it is so verbose, and it's really an unhelpful tool. So the whole theme of communications needs a very thorough examination and rebuild. And then, of course, there's such themes as conflict of interest. How is that handled? How is it characterized? Is it 1 degree, 2 degrees, 3 degrees? And when you get into a relatively small community such as this one, clearly conflict of interest has to come into the discussion. And one of the other areas was the consultation aspect, which I was, as I said, very delighted to hear David speak to in such wonderful detail. I thought he had been reading our notes, as well as the project management. We certainly feel there almost needs to be the equivalent of a minder in some way attached to council to ensure that there's a juncture point where a timely and full information can come to the citizenry. So that's one of those things. The next thing that I would like to briefly speak on is that, and I actually have a question for David, and that is this whole business of this this consultation, the so-called consultation period that the minister launched on the 16th of December for feedback from the public with respect to MZOs. Now, I think it's viewed that this is really, can at best be seen as a veneer or window dressing, because the bill they passed in the summertime of 197 has equipped the minister with everything that the person in that position needs in order to get pretty much anything done in this province. And one of the questions I would have for David is, at this hour, is it your understanding that even if the citizens and the city council say no to Xinyi, can the province, with this minister and these MZOs, come and make it happen anyway? So that, maybe I'll let you speak to that for a second.
Loreena, thanks for the question. An MZO is a legal instrument. It's a regulation. In other words, it's the law of the province of Ontario, and it is now unbound by any further requirements. So, governments make laws, they can undo laws, but at the present moment, it's the law of the province of Ontario that no further Planning Act applications are required of Xinyi, subject to a site plan and a building permit. They have a right to go ahead.
So when one is looking at this whole situation, I think what we're seeing, and we're amongst us.
Just for a second, David, I thought you were asking that if the council said no, the province make the project go ahead anyway. I think that's the question, David.
That's the question.
The simple answer is no. The only way you can stop, so Xinyi now possesses a legal right. It's now out of the city's hands. It's out of the province's hands with respect to the existing legal instrument. The only way that you could stop that would be to have the province to essentially pass a new regulation, which would revoke the existing MZO. So the municipality can ask the province to do that. The province, I mean, the logic of it is that if the municipality can ask for an MZO and it gets granted, the logic should be that the municipality can ask for an MZO to be revoked, and that the province should grant it if you're really talking about local decision-making and authority. So yes, they can ask, but there's no guarantee that the province will respond.
David, I don't think we're asking the question. You're hearing I'm not saying the question clearly enough. If Stratford says they don't want the Xinyi plant, can the Ontario government force the Xinyi plant on the town of Stratford? That's the question.
Well, from a planning perspective, the answer to that is yes. With respect to the cost sharing agreement, the answer is no. The province has no business with the cost sharing agreement.
And in terms of this site plan agreement?
Well, site plan is a bit complicated insofar as you cannot use the site plan about a facility. Site plan is all about lighting, parking spaces, landscape, ingress, egress. In other words, if you follow the process and you're reasonable with your planners, council has no decision. It has a decision with respect to the site plan, but it's not like a zoning where there are matters of good planning, consultation with the public. But the public is excluded from the site plan process for a reason. It's a very transactional type of planning process. So it's theoretically possible that the city could withhold its approval for the site plan, but at that point, Xinyi would sue the city and say, you're not following the site plan process property. And in that context or forum, it probably would be successful. In other words, the city would have liability if it tried to use the site plan process to stop Xinyi.
So where I was going with this was that we know that there's about 12 days left of this so-called consultation process, and to the degree that it matters for anything, and I think it still does, because I think it's really important that the public does, that what we're facing, however undemocratic things have been here in this city, and they've been very undemocratic in my view, it's going on in spades at the provincial level. And I think it's really important that we are one of many cities who have been weaponized by this instrument and the unfettered authority of the minister to go and do all manner of things. I mean, it could be, farmland, it could be anything. So I'm inviting everyone here to, if they can take a moment and make their comments known, and go to the site where they can make their comments known. I mean, so the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing are inviting public comments via the Environmental Registry of Ontario concerning changes that have been already made to certain legislative provisions in the Planning Act with the enactment of Bill 197. That occurred last July. I think it was the 21st of July. And these very troubling changes now enable the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing to address site plan matters directly and with impunity as part of the Minister's zoning order. So we are looking to people to please make their concerns known in a great deal of urgency, and it might, your concern may have something to that is expressed similar to this. As a Canadian citizen and resident of the province of Ontario, I'm very strongly opposed to the changes enacted under Bill 197, specifically with regard to the enhanced powers granted to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing to unilaterally remove municipal use of site plan control, require agreements between the municipality and development proponents concerning site plan matters, and make amendments to Minister's zoning orders that use any of these enhanced authorities without first giving public notice or requiring public consultation. And so when we reflect on this, and I'll just say that we'll make these documents available on the Wise Communities website. We're also inviting the Get Concerned folks to put these up there so you can go to either one of the websites and study the instructions to do this. But it is truly a very, very sad day for our democracies, not only locally, but now at a provincial level. And I would really encourage people to be engaged in that as well. And that's all my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Loreena. I hope you'll read the chat box for all the appreciation that's in there. And somebody has said, how do they get in touch with your group? So I don't know if Mark can post your email, your Wise Communities email in the chat box while we're having this conversation so people can follow up with you. So thank you. Next, Lesley's going to come on the screen, and she's going to update us. Lesley and her co-conspirator, who I affectionately call co-vigilistas, are continuing the vigil at City Hall, and Lesley's going to give us an update. Are you ready to go, Lesley?
I'm here.
Okay,
Already.
you're on.
Great. Well, then I do want to acknowledge Peggy Coffey as my co-vigilista. We are on this journey together. Well, today was day 12 of the climate emergency / no to Xinyi vigil. And through wind and cold, through snow, through freezing rain, determined citizens are standing on guard for our city, Stratford. The vigil ensures that there is still pressure and presence of the citizens on the steps of City Hall, since we can't do rallies during the lockdown. It keeps the issue in front and center. And in this pause time, we were wondering what to do, but we were convinced by the determination of the citizens standing at vigil that we must continue and keep this vigil going. So it was the consensus to vigil on during the pause. Our youngest citizen on vigil is a beautiful young girl. You've probably seen her picture if you followed the posts that Peggy and I post each day after a vigil. She made her own sign, and her sign reads, "The glass plant is bad. The glass plant will make the air bad." And she stands there so proudly when she and her mother come. It's just a heartwarming thing. And it's for this little girl and for all the children and the youth that we are standing on this vigil against this unconscionable proposal. Well, the vigil, as well as being a presence, also educates, because we get many people that come up and want to know what's going on. Some people that don't even know that this is going on. We have discussions with citizens about the issues. We direct them to Get Concerned Stratford and to Wise Communities. And Peggy and we do have petitions, so people come by. It's a handwritten one right now, so maybe, Mike, we can get something more official. And so Peggy and I do post every day after each vigil. We take photographs. We talk about our thoughts on the day. Basically, what our vigil has been like that day. And we would ask that people share these posts so that we get more awareness about the vigil, and maybe Get Concerns can maybe put some of the photos and posts on their Facebook page. And I just wanted to read you Peggy's post for today. Oops, there it is. Day 12, City Hall Vigil. Looking at the plaques at our City Hall, made me wonder, where are the visionary leaders these days? I'm thinking Agnes MacPhail would be standing beside us today. Had a bit of a laugh at the no vaping sign. Wouldn't want to mess up our air quality here in Stratford. Oh wait, it is okay to have 200 meters tall smokestacks spewing out emissions 24/7. I guess that is okay. Hey, don't sweat the small stuff, I guess. Get Concerned Stratford Zoom meeting tonight at 7. See you there. So we do post about what the day has been like, and we would love people to share the pictures and the posts. One of the other plaques that Peggy photographed today was the Nations in Bloom Environmental Award given in Spain of 1997. Quote from the plaque: beauty, planning, heritage, community, participation, the environment. Where have these values gone in Stratford? Why has Stratford abandoned a more responsible, environmentally aware green path? But the other thing is there has been a new vigiler appearing at City Hall, Stratford's own Rocky, the underdog who is fighting against all odds at City Hall. Now this Rocky video that you can see on Facebook is a collaboration between Peggy Coffey and Laura McMillan. in a wanting to put some lightness in this heavy situation, some humor. So keep a lookout for further episodes of Our Courageous Rocky. So, we're thinking, we are an artistic town. We're calling on artists to open, to give us ideas, to bring ideas that provide spirit and variety to our vigil. We are a theatrical city. Come in a cape, a costume, make a mini video, share photos. Well, we are at City Hall from Monday to Saturday, noon to 2 p.m. However, we may be a little bit late tomorrow, January 20th, because Joseph Biden is being inaugurated as the 46th US president. And hope is high for transparency in government, honesty, and action on climate emergency, on this climate emergency. So maybe it'll be a good example from politicians, even here in Stratford, to be of high moral and ethical standards and to include empathy for our planet, for our citizens. mean, the main purpose, according to City Council, for this pause was the health and safety of the citizens. Well, I started to wonder, well, the health and safety of the citizens with these huge smokestacks spewing greenhouse gases, the health and safety of our citizens with the stress that's been put on our citizens with this unconscionable proposal that's so wrong for our arts, agricultural, and light industry city. Yeah, health and safety of our citizens. Well, each day is often a mystery. Stepping out and stepping up onto the steps, carrying our signs. No day is ever the same, although, you know, some of the photos, you know, with us all holding the signs maybe look alike. We get lots of thank yous. We get thumbs up. We get cars honking as they go by. We get passersby. We get visitors. We have discussions. We have conversations. And also for the vigilers, we get companionship. You can sign up for a time on Get Concerned Stratford under Vigil. You have to click on the edit this document. We usually stand each for about an hour from either noon to 1 or 1 to 2. But if you don't sign up, don't let that stop you from coming out to Vigil. Bring your sign, come on by. We are only allowed to have a gathering of 5, but if we get more than 5, we'll send some of the vigilers, or some of the vigilers will go to the back of City Hall and stand on guard in Market Square. Just show up. So make sure you dress warmly, wear a mask, be mindful of social distancing. Come and join in, 5 at a time. It's a lovely social time, as well as feeling proud to be standing on guard for our city. It's an antidote to the depression and the worry about this glass factory threat. We vigil, we fight on, we are determined. And I want to give a huge thank you to the citizens who have been coming and standing on guard for Stratford. One last comment is Deborah gave a suggestion for the land that maybe what we should have is we should buy the land, create an arboretum with a small artisan art glass studio on that land. And I want to thank Peggy Seeger for that beautiful song, and we will fight in unison with the wise citizens of England who know that it's so crucial at this point on the history of our planet that we fight community to community, tree by tree, river by river, heart by heart. Thank you. Thank you to all who come out and vigil with us, and to everyone who's working on this very important issue.
Thank you, Lesley. I hope you'll see all the appreciation in the chat box. We've also posted the link where people can sign up to join you. And I think you've created a new slogan, Vigil On. So thanks to you and Peggy. Next is Tori Sutton. And as Tori joins us, I just want to build on what Lesley was talking about, pictures. And Tori has a terrific idea that she's going to ask you to participate in. And are you ready, Tori?
I am.
Okay, you're on.
Perfect. So just a quick introduction. I know some of you are familiar with me, but my name is Tori Sutton. I'm a resident of Stratford. I live here with my husband and my young daughter. I work in the comms and marketing arena, but I think several of you may know me from my past life where I was a journalist and I actually covered Stratford City Council for about a decade. So naturally, that's what sort of brought me into this fray. Very concerned about the public process and lack thereof. you know, a few weeks ago on one of these meetings, I mentioned that, you know, the act of a large group assembling in council chambers for a meeting is actually very powerful. It's something I saw many times as a reporter, and I think it has a big impact. But of course, that's just something that we're not able to do right now. And frankly, we're not going to be able to do it anytime soon. So I've really been racking my brains for the last few weeks to kind of think about ways to just show the impact of how many voices there are and how many bodies out in the community. And during the last week, it's really kicked into overdrive after I heard some of Chris Pidgeon's comments. So certainly, I know we have talked, it's been mentioned, you know, the racism and the different accusations that have been lobbed around already. But the one thing he said that struck me last week was that the people opposing this project were elitist. And it hit me for a few reasons. The first being, I have seen this sort of tactic be leveraged over the years in Stratford. I find that sometimes people try to, you know, pit the arts community against, you know, the common folk, or, you know, it's the people that live on William Street versus the world. And most of the time it's bunk, but this time I think it especially is. And all it is a PR tactic. They're trying to paint our group as privileged, as elitist, and just against, you know, an industrial development. This is fake. And I look no further than my own home to prove this. You know, certainly maybe you could accuse me of being elitist, but my husband is a heavy diesel mechanic here in town. And he works for a very small truck shop. And I will tell you, the entire shop is opposed to this proposal. They do such glamorous jobs in there as service all the garbage, recycling, and organics trucks that service this city. You know, certainly industrial development is great for their business because increased truck traffic means they get more work. None of them want to see this here. So I like I said, I've been thinking and I reached out to Melissa because I think I have something, an idea that could get, you know, a big or result in a large impact, but I really do need your help. So we have a very diverse group. We know it's a very diverse group, and we need to show them who we are. So I've got a quick ask for you all, and it should only take a few minutes of your time. What I would like everyone to do, if you're comfortable, is pull out your phone, the device of your choice, and take a short video. If you can, you know, swap it around and put it on landscape mode, that's great, but we can take any submissions and work with it. It can be on selfie mode, sitting on your couch. We just need people to introduce themselves, first and last name, please, because we know that you know, petitions with one name on them don't go far at City Council. So if you could state your first and last name. If you would like to share your occupation or something about you that might be relevant, that is certainly welcome to show the diversity, and to state your opposition to the glass plant proposal. And I know that a lot of you, you know, you're sitting side by side on this meeting tonight. If you could take your videos separately so we could get a great inventory, I'm then going to edit them together. And it's something that not only can we leverage on social media to counter some of these comments and the way they're trying to paint the movement, but also to send to City Council. Because if you really stop and think about the impact of someone sitting there and even watching 3 minutes of faces come up on their screen saying over and over and over again that they're opposed to this development. The signs are wonderful. I have one. I've sent emails. Everything we're doing is great, but I think that this will have a different sort of visual impact. So as I said, you know, keep it simple, you know, 1 or 2 sentences. And even if you're nervous or camera shy, please know that this isn't about production value. We don't expect you to go up on stage at the festival and become their next star. We just need to show who we are as everyday people. So please take the video, submit it. We've created, along with Melissa, we've created a new email address to submit these to, just to keep it separate. So say no to Xinyi@gmail.com. And of course, by submitting, you are granting Get Concerned Stratford your permission to utilize your likeness and your video in our campaign. And even if you don't want to take a video, another idea might be as simple as, writing the sentence on a piece of paper and taking a picture of yourself with it and sending that in as well. So certainly, if you have any questions about this, you can reach out to me at that email address. You can find me on Facebook at Tori Sutton Roy. But I just need to say it again. The only way to make this effective is by quantity. We need to get absolutely as many people as we can. So please get your family, friends, your contacts, follow up with them, offer to help if you can in a safe way, socially distanced. But this really can make a difference. And it goes along with what Lesley was just saying. And I think she made a very important point when she asked everyone to share posts online. Sharing each other's content and sharing these posts is a great way just to keep things front of mind, constantly popping up on people's feeds. Again, this is the communications marketing mind spinning for me. One last thought, though. I think we're going to have a fun little activity in a minute, but I wanted to leave everyone with one more thought. And I've seen this pop up in the chat in the last few minutes, like, we could still end up with this because of the province. So, what are we even fighting, and are we wasting our time? And I had a conversation with a friend last week, a friend from town, and he is a respected historian, author. He's a former journalist. A lot of you probably know him. And he, we talked for several hours, but the one thing he said to me, and he wanted me to keep in mind and pass on, he was very involved with preserving the Cooper site, and with a very small citizens group. And, when things sort of got tiring, or they kind of, would shake their head and think, what are we doing? They would always remind themselves that when it comes to an issue like this, there is no right or wrong side of the issue. There is only the right side. And he said to me that we all need to remember that we are on the right side of this issue. We can't forget that. It is a worthy cause, and we need to stand our ground. We need to fight this proposal.
Thank you, Tori. Now, lots of people are loving your idea already and saying so in the chat box. And we're going to send a follow-up email to people on the list, so they'll all get the details and be able to send their submission to you. Do you have a deadline, or is it more like you want to do this until you've got enough? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, if everyone could possibly try to get a video over within the next week or so, that would be great. I will certainly keep adding on over time, but even though we're on this pause, I'm very weary of it. As someone who's covered a lot of city council issues, I don't think this is going to go away. And I think the more we can keep this in the spotlight, the better positioned we'll be.
Okay, so as Tori mentioned, we had a fun activity, and the steering committee was suggesting that something we could do right now there's something we can do right now and that can be incorporated into the video. And that is, in a moment, I'm going to ask all of those who are opposed to Xinyi to do that, and we'll do a screenshot. Now, don't do that. This is just a rehearsal. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to do it officially. Now, if you don't want to be included in that, turn your video off, and we will only include the videos of people who've got their thumb like that, okay? And the way that we're going to do this is there's like 160 people on here, and I haven't scrolled through the gallery to see how many of you have your videos on, but essentially our tech staff are going to need to take a quick screenshot of several screens. So it could take us a minute or so to do this. So here's what's going to happen. Are you ready, Danny and Megan? Give me a shout out or a wave at me or say something in the chat box if you're ready.
We're ready.
You're ready. All right. So I'm going to put my thumb up to show us how it's done. And if you're opposed to Xinyi, do the same thing. If you don't want to be your picture to be included, then turn your video off. And maybe I'm just going to vamp here for a minute. And I'm going to vamp with Tori as I do this, because the screenshot will just record our pictures, not our voices. But Tori, I think you were saying that it doesn't matter what format people send you their video in, right?
No, absolutely not. Just like an MP4, which is what your cell phone would usually record it as. And when you email it in, if you can attach it to the email, please do so. If you prefer to use like a cloud-based storage system like Google Drive or Dropbox, you can always send us the link. And if you are not the most technical person, you can also reach out by email, and I would be happy to help you walk through the steps of getting that file to us.
And Tori, I'm guessing that if somebody sends an email that's got a little glitch in it, or the cat jumps in their lap in the middle of the picture or something, and you'll be able to edit out any little warts or little glitches, because you want everybody to look good, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, if someone shares their thoughts in a 5-minute clip, we'll probably edit down a little bit. But yeah, we will be doing the editing, so we can fix things up for sure.
And I'm reading in the chat box that somebody said my thumb is down too, but I'm not technologically savvy. So we appreciate that solidarity. And Catherine says, I put an applause sign. That's fine. We can work with that. Somebody's using the no emoticon. That's good. See what a creative bunch everybody is here, and they really want to help you out with this. Megan, Danny, tell us.
We're all good.
We're done. All right, there we are.
Good job.
We've had a group activity. All right, we're going to the last portion of the meeting, and I'm going to ask Melissa to come back on the screen. She's going to introduce the steering committee. Are you there, Melissa?
I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, so am I there?
You're good.
Okay, so we've had a couple of people mention that they didn't know who the steering committee was or who was involved with Get Concerned Stratford as far as that's concerned. It's never been our intention to not be public about who we are. So we just wanted to give you guys an idea who's involved with the steering committee. So in addition to myself, we have Mike Sullivan, the man, the myth, the legend. Mike's one of Stratford's newer residents, and we're ecstatic to have him. He's a retired self-proclaimed busybody. He's had lots of work experience over the years, auto manufacturing, CBC radio. He's got union experience, and of course with the Government of Canada. Then we've got Sharon Collingwood. She's a teacher of French and medieval studies who retired to Stratford 5 years ago. She thinks that Stratford is the most committed, caring, and creative community she's ever lived in. Sharon is the face behind the Get Concerned Stratford website and the voice on the other end of the Get Concerned email. She's also the lady with the signs. Then we've got Jamie Gibb. He owns a farm adjacent to the proposed Xinyi site. He's bringing a perspective of impact to the surrounding agricultural and rural properties. He has experience witnessing recent growth and evolution of the city's industrial areas, and he's keen to see a sense of stewardship and appropriate use of resources brought to urban growth decision-making, which I think is formidable and absolutely commendable. Then we've got Doug Tripp. He's a retired chemical engineer whose career included teaching and management in the Ontario college system and energy and environmental management consulting. These days, Doug can also be found installing Say No to Xinyi signs in front yards throughout the city. Up next, we've got Deborah Smith. She's the lady that wears many hats and has had career experience in journalism, transit management. She's an actor and an artist. And today, the most wonderful Deborah was coordinating scrub cap deliveries to emergency rooms, COVID centers, and long-term care homes on behalf of Stratford caremongers. And next up, we have Susan McSherry. So Susan is a resident of Guelph-Hermosa who has loved the city of Stratford and the festival since she was a child. She is a water and environmental activist who would like to applaud the Stratford community for your support of Get Concerned Stratford and for ensuring your voices are heard. And I believe that rounds everybody out.
Applause, applause. Everybody's clapping. We can see it in the chat box. Continue on, Melissa.
Okay. So am I going into the finances right from there?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a slide? Are we putting anything up for that? Okay, perfect. That's great. Okay, so as far as the financial report goes, we've raised $41,137 in donations from most wonderful and generous community support. We're so appreciative of that. That's allowed us to get signs in front yards throughout the city, produce and distribute our mail leaflet, conduct our public opinion poll. It's also allowed us to retain the water watchers for campaign support and guidance, which has been invaluable. We've retained the skilled environmental lawyer, David Donnelly, and we've been able to hire Franco Di Giovanni to review Xinyi's air quality submissions. We've also been able to enlist the Small Change Fund, which has coordinated our bookkeeping. They pay bills on behalf of Get Concerned Stratford. They process credit cards. And they have the designations required for us to be able to provide charitable donations for all of your receipts, which you'll be able to claim obviously at tax time. So that in expenditures totals $39,786.63, which leaves us a balance of $1,350.37.
Do folks have any questions for Melissa on the financial report? Nigel Howard has asked the question, advise status of tax receipts, and I'm asking what's your question exactly? If you made a donation online to Small Change Fund, you instantly received a tax receipt. And if you wrote a check to the Small Change Fund, a tax receipt should be in the mail to you. Laurel Grace says you've achieved great value for your money. Margaret Thompson says, what's our upcoming costs? Jeff and Joyce say, do we pay the water watchers? Melissa, do you want to answer that question?
Sure, absolutely. So we do, we have retained the water watchers for campaign support. They provide things such as Mike Buckwell's guidance throughout this, as well as Danny and Megan and Shifra, who are on here now. Danny edits all of our videos and posts them to our YouTube channel. Just a ton of background support. They facilitate these meetings. So all of that has been done for us, which has been a great support and that we needed.
So Margaret, your question, what are our upcoming costs relates to this, to a small bit of fundraising we'd like to do right now. So $40,000 is a huge amount of money from the community. Like, it's just, we can't say enough how appreciative the group is of that. And I just want to say, as a water watcher who works with lots of communities on lots of campaigns, you've really stepped up, and the donations that you made all of these activities possible. The lawn signs, the leaflet, the public opinion poll. And it's been I don't know if council would say this, but I'm sure they're feeling that the public response has been overwhelming, and that has stopped the train. What's going to happen next is hard to know. Personally, I don't think it's going to be as intense in the next 8 weeks as it has been in the last 8 weeks. And our budget now is about, what we have left in the bank is about $1,300. And so having money gives the group, the steering committee, confidence to plan. My own opinion is that we're entering into a period now when I think we're going to spend a little more on the lawyer. I think, first of all, David Donnelly has low rates compared to many lawyers because he sets his rates to work with grassroots groups. And David has given us useful, very helpful advice, but actually not a lot of time relative to the amount of time I think we may need from David in the next period as we enter into these negotiations with the town. I think there may be the need for to retain another expert, and there will be some communication needs. So really, we don't have a clear idea of what we're going to need next. When we talked about this last night with the steering committee, a couple of people said, well, why don't we just ask the community for what has been our average monthly amount? Well, our average monthly amount has been $20,000. I just don't think that that's what's going to be our average monthly amount in the next little period of time. So here's what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask you to make some pledges in the chat box. And the pledges that you make now, you can go online later to the small change fund, and we're putting the donation in the link chat box now, or you can write a check later. I will speak briefly about the details of checks in a moment. But we'd like to ask you to make some pledges. So I see that Jane has pledged $100 right now. Thank you, Jane. Richard has pledged 200, and we're going to keep a running tally going here. Alan's done 100. Here we go. So this is terrific, folks. You can make a pledge of $100. You can make a pledge of 150. You can make a pledge of 50. Thank you, Luann and John. Thank you, Barbara. 100's a very popular number. That's terrific. Sharon's just pledged 500. Thank you, Sharon. 200 from Bill Pledge. Sorry, from Bill Andrus. Bill Pledges is the sentence. Bill Andrus is the name. Laurel promised $100. By the way, Laurel is a supporter and fan of the Water Watchers. She lives in Burlington, and Laurel, a couple of years ago for her birthday, she asked everybody who came to her birthday party to make a donation to the Water Watchers, and she raised almost $1,000 for us. So Laurel, you're a real trooper, and it's glad to see you here. The more pledges are rolling in, and I know that Megan and Danny are totaling those up, and we're going to keep on going until we get a total. The Small Change Fund will accept checks. We've just been informed that because of their policy is, in order to issue a tax receipt for a check, the check must be $100 or more. So if your donation is less than $100, I encourage you to make your donation through the Small Change Fund website, because then you will get a tax receipt for sure. If you're going to make a check, if you're going to write a check, then please make it for $100 or more. We're just not, the Small Change Fund is just not able to issue tax receipts for checks that are less than 100. I'm just checking, I'm getting a note here. I think we're at about $3,000. I'm going to ask Danny and Megan if that's the highest total that you've got. And I see people are still chiming in, $3,200. So I wonder if we can get to $4,000, because with $1,000 we have in the bank, that'll give us $5,000, which is kind of a nice round number for the steering committee to work with. I see we're at 3,500. Does this feel like National Public Radio? I saw that somebody put in the chat box, keep calm and vigil on. And I'm just going to make up right now that if anybody makes us a donation of $1,000, we're going to make you a unique Keep Calm and Vigil On t-shirt. So anybody, that's the special gift we're going to give to any $1,000 donor. I think, Lesley, we should talk about creating a Keep Calm and Vigil On bumper sticker or something that we can make available to everybody who's a donor. We're getting near the end of the meeting. In a couple of moments, I'm going to come back to Melissa so she can do closing comments, and also give you a couple more minutes to post donations in the chat box, to post pledges, pardon me. And also, when the meeting is officially over, and we're getting ready to leave, we're going to put the video on one more time, so that if people want to linger after the meeting's officially over and hear Peggy Seeger sing that beautiful song one more time, you can hear that on the way out. And we are going to send you out an e-blast, an email with information from this meeting, things that we could do going forward. I see we're at $4,050. Another 50 just came in, so that makes it 4,100. I'm hoping to keep us on going here till 5,000. And So we're going to send email out to you. And as many people have said in the chat box, that this is a moment when we can't put our guard down. We need to continue to press forward. We're going to do that. We're going to keep in regular communication. It's been a terrific evening tonight. I think that I'm going to say that we're over $4,000 in donations, which is terrific. And Wise Communities just privately promised $500. And Shauna McKenna, must be a relation, eh? 200, 5, 7, I think we're at $4,900. So I think the next $100 donation puts us over our goal of $5,000, and there it is. So you are just a terrific community. I'm going to pass it back to Melissa for closing comments.
Okay, I just want to thank everybody. You guys are fantastic. Tonight was a lot of fun. I think we kind of had a different sort of meeting tonight. I noticed a bunch of comments in the chat box about not giving up and not stepping back and not taking our foot off the gas. And I just want the community to be assured that we will be working in the background. If you have any questions, please reach out through the Facebook page, through the email. We have no intention of stopping during this pause. So we will continue to work on. As always, I'm just going to say it's not over. It's not a done deal. Keep fighting. We have done great things so far. And I just want to thank you all so much, and have a good night.
The human brain can't stand still, even when it gets to the top of the hill. Just can't stop and admire the view. Always got to have something new. The human brain's an intelligent fool. Build you a hospital, build you a school. You wake up the very next day. The progress train took it all away. The progress train can demolish your town, selling us heaven when we're hellbound. When we're hellbound, fed by apathy, driven by greed, always running at top speed, going so fast you won't notice it till it's past. Doesn't give a damn about yesterday when you forget what it took away. You'll know the progress train roll right over you. Juggernaut hurtling down the road. You're not in control, you're part of the load. Running the lights won't slow down. Get in its way and it'll run you down. The progress train is on a one-way track. Take you there, won't bring you back. And when you start singing, I'm all right, Jack. I'm all right, Jack. I'm all right, Jack. You'll know the progress train ran right into you. The girl in the red shoes had to dance. The progress train has to advance. Tables to turn, money to earn, bridges to burn. We never learn, got no destination, it'll go anywhere. Doesn't even know when it's got there. Got no beginning, got no end. Doesn't even care what's around the bend. Got to grow, got to change. Build up, tear down, rearrange. Got to move on, dirty or clean. It's an atom bomb. It's a washing machine. It's a love song. It sings, seducing you with things that ease your heart and please your mind. The passengers sleep and the driver's blind. A fire in his pants, he don't dance, no romance. They want you now. They want you now, they want you now, and they'll have you now. That's the progress train, and it's right over you.